Tak to jsi nemusel.
Taková malá pozornost.
Drazí přátelé, dobrý večer. Na 20. dni mače vám přeji. Po hokejovém audiokabinetu, což byl posledním audiokabinetem vlastně, se dostáváme ke skotské linii, ve které se dnes představí Joe Clifford. Omlouvám se, byl jsem do role tlumočníka a moderátora nominovaný asi před 10 minutami, takže doufám, že omluvíte drobné výpadky. Dnes třeba budu číst tady tento krátký úvod, takže přečtu jen pár slov. Joe Clifford, dříve též známá jako John Clifford, je dramatičkou, překladatelkou, básnířkou a umělkyní, novinářkou a bývalou profesorkou divadelních věd na Univerzitě Queen Margaret a laureátkou řady cen. Žije v Edinburghu, což vás asi nepřekvapuje. V 80. letech se spolupodílela na zakládání divadelní společnosti Traverse ve Skotsku, o té už tady několikrát byla řeč, čili nic nového. Je autorkou více než 70 děl různých dramatických forem. Něco z těchto dramatických děl dnes zazní. Mezi její hry patří The Tree of Knowledge, Sex, Chips and the Holy Ghost, které napsala pro televizní společnost Channel 4. Její adaptace Nadějných vyhlídek od Charlese Dickense v divadle Beckman Unicorn je v současné době na turné po Velké Británii. Pracuje také pro Skotské národní divadlo. Přivítejte prosím Joe Clifford.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
Velice děkuji, jsem ráda, že tu můžu s vámi být.
Did you also tell them that I am a very proud father and a very proud grandmother?
Doufám, že jsi jim teď řekl, že jsem velmi pyšnou matkou a pyšným dědečkem.
Okay. My first piece is called The Letter to the Unknown Soldier.
Můj první kus, který vám dnes přečtu, je dopis neznámému vojínovi.
On platform 1 of one of the big London railway stations, there is a statue of an unknown soldier, placed there to commemorate the railway workers who were killed in the First World War. The soldier wears the uniform of the trenches with a hand-knitted scarf around his neck, and he is reading a letter. I was one of 50 writers asked to write him a letter, to write him this letter, to commemorate the centenary of the outbreak of the war. The idea is that these letters will inspire thousands of other people to write to him. And these letters will be published on a website and held in an archive to create a very special war memorial, made not out of stone, but something more durable, made out of words. This is the letter I wrote. My dear friend, thinking of you today as I write this letter makes me realize you have been with me all along. You were there when I lived as a boy and my school made me wear a uniform and walk every day under an archway on my way to classes. The archway had the names of your comrades from both world wars carved into it, the names of all those who had been murdered in the conflict. And on the other side of the archway was the huge statue of the brooding man, the field marshal, who our country honored for stifling his humanity and sending you to your deaths. We were made to wear army uniform on Monday afternoons, uniform of the kind they made you wear, and blanco our puttees and polish our buckles and our boots. We were inspected on a parade ground and made to march up and down carrying rifles while sergeants shouted at us. The rifles came from your war. You had to carry them too, and later we were taught to take them apart and oil them and grease them and then fire them at targets with human faces. This was done to us for the same reason it was done to you, to make us into what they called men. And so I associated my hatred and fear of all this with my deep desire not to be a man at all. Longing to be a woman was something I was so ashamed of because I had been told, like you, that to be like a woman was the worst shame of all. As I grew older, my dear friend, I learnt of your sufferings and the desperate cruelty of it all, and like so many of us, came to understand that what we had both been taught about the glory of war was a terrible, evil lie. To think of war as something unnecessary and cruel was almost impossible when you were alive, but you helped strengthen that thought in us. And along with that understanding, it became more and more possible for me to learn to respect, honor, and love the woman in me, and allow her full and open expression in my life. Which is why now, as a woman, I have come here with all the other travelers to stand at your feet and honor you. My dear love, you must have felt so helpless, but there was a power in you that you knew nothing of. Your death taught us that we do not have to go to war, that there is another way, that in honoring compassion, pity, and mercy, those so-called women's qualities, we can learn to truly honor the woman in us. And then, as humans, truly understand what it means to be a man. With love and thanks, Joe Clifford. The second piece goes with this picture.
Druhá část se váže k tomuto obrazu.
It's called Dear Scotland, or The Unnamed Woman at the Edge of Things.
Jmenuje se to Drahé Skotsko a tak dále.
The National Theatre of Scotland asked me to write a 5-minute monologue inspired by one of the paintings in the National Portrait Gallery in Edinburgh.
Skotské národní divadlo, nebo byla jsem požádána od Skotského národního divadla, abych napsala 5minutový monolog o jednom z obrazů, které visí v Národní portrétní galerii ve Skotsku.
The picture's gone, but it is a group portrait of the male poets who formed part of the Scottish poetic renaissance of the 50s and 60s.
Obraz nám jaksi zmizel, ale je to skupinový obraz části několika mužů, kteří se zasloužili o skotskou renesanci v 50. letech.
Yeah, 50s and 60s. I think this is all up here, dear, isn't it? It's all translated. Just to save you your time.
Okay.
You're doing it very beautifully.
Vypadá to, že už to tam všechno je, tak už přikročíme ke čtení.
The poet has imagined them all together in a bar in Rose Street, in my town in Edinburgh, engaged in the kind of lively discussion they used to have there. You can see, or you could see, Hugh MacDermott in the middle, George Mackay Brown, Solly MacLean, Ian Crichton-Smith, Robert Garrioch, Norman MacCaig, and many others. All well-known Scottish poets, all carefully, recognizably painted, and all male. There are some women in the picture, but their faces are not painted, and they have no name. If you look, you'll see a woman on the left of the picture looking out at us. Look even more carefully and you'll see her breasts are bare, and she seems to be naked, except for a pair of red stockings. She may be inspired by a real person, Rose Cartwright, a member of the group and a lover of many of the poets who has been written out of history. I wanted to imagine the letter she would write to Scotland. Dear Scotland, nothing dear about you, Scotland, you vile country. You with your cold, dark days. You with your rain that stings my face. You with your hard, grey streets, your dirty windows. You with your niggardly closed-off minds. You with your instinct to cut everyone down to size. You who find it so hard to praise anyone or anything. You who always want to fail because you're frightened of succeeding. Always happier for things to go wrong so you can blame someone else for it. I hate you, Scotland. I hate your poets. Look at them. So-called alpha males. Look at them. Talking. They never stop. Never. Look at the way they toady up to that old man or say vile things about him behind his back. The old man with his filthy pipe and his tartan scarf, praising Lenin and the power of the people, declaiming all the time in that ridiculous made-up language of his that's supposed to be Scots, but which no one can understand. He looked words up in the dictionary and he learned them off by heart. Not because he wanted to communicate, but because he wanted to impress and intimidate. And them in their pecking order, all about him. Look at them, bunch of pricks. Not that their pricks are up to much. I know because I've had most of them inside me, waggling about or pumping up and down. Up and down, in the dreariest kind of way, and then me afterwards smiling, saying, "You are wonderful." It was a skill I had. You had it too, maybe. And they all loved me for it and the way I moaned, and that's why I'm painted naked with my red stockings on, to show that I'm available. But then see how it's also kind of hidden that I'm naked, because that, dear Scotland, that's just the way you feel, just the way you feel about sex. Kind of furtive and ashamed. And the way you feel about feelings too, and why you will keep drinking just to blank them out. You've blanked us out too. Dear Scotland, kept us on the edge of things, me and Liberté and Jenny in the courtyard, not even bothered to paint our faces, and denied us names. So it's the names, Scotland. It's the names I'll tell you first. Liberté's name is Marie Deschamps, and she fought on the barricades. And that's Jenny in the courtyard, and I'm Stella, and I belong in the stars. Jenny's dead now. She worked the streets to support her child, and she was a better human being than the whole lot of you, you with your fine words and your frightened hearts. You'd have used her for your furtive pleasures, only she made you pay. But me, I gave it you for nothing. I let myself be used. Don't judge me for that, Scotland, because you're the same. You've made yourself available. You've allowed yourself to be colonized. They've colonized your resources and they've colonized your minds, and then you believe them, Scotland, when they tell you you're no good and can't be trusted to run your own affairs. That's why the Scotland I lived in was so very small. Why I'm the same, Scotland, the same as you. why I let myself be despoiled, why I wrote my poems in the darkness and never let them come to light. That's why I drank myself to death, but it doesn't have to be this way. Don't believe them when they tell you so. The squalor of alcohol, defeat and failure, Scotland, the resigned and twisted bitterness, that's not for you. The old man wasn't altogether wrong, Scotland, when he said poetry should be at the center of your life. I loved him once. I loved them all. Maybe I wouldn't say poetry. Maybe I'd say love. Maybe I'd say creativity. Maybe I'd say they should be at the beating heart of things. Whatever. I won't argue. But don't leave me at the edge, Scotland, and don't deny my name. Acknowledge me. I don't mind being naked. I refuse to be ashamed. But right now, Scotland, when school children notice that I have no clothes, they get hurried on. You see, Scotland, you're still so prudish when it comes to sex. But your children should be fearless, unashamed. Don't perpetuate abuse and shame. Don't believe them when they tell you there is no other way. Don't believe them when they tell you they cannot help committing crimes. They're wrong. They are very wrong. There is another way. I was gifted, Scotland. I was different, Scotland. I laughed, I danced, I loved my body, and I loved to live. Yet I destroyed myself because there was no place for me. I was clever when there was no space for women's cleverness. So I drank myself stupid and I felt ashamed. Don't be ashamed, Scotland. Don't be ashamed to be women. Don't be ashamed to be men. Don't be ashamed to be people of both genders or of none. Listen to those of us who don't fit in. Cherish your outcasts. Because on that day, Scotland, that day you'll build the road to freedom. That day, freedom will be at the center of your picture, and the face she'll wear will be your own. Thank you. The last piece is extracts from my play, The Gospel According to Jesus, Queen of Heaven.
Poslední kus, který vám tady přečtu, tak je takovým kouskem, malým výňatkem z Evangelia podle Ježíše Královny nebe a země.
And this is a play that I wrote and will be performing at this year's Fringe Festival.
Je to hra, kterou jsem napsala a která se bude hrát na letošním Fringe Festivalu v Edinburghu.
And I have a few copies of the script for sale at a very reasonable price.
A ano, a důležitá zpráva je, že jsem přivezla několik kusů sebou za velmi mrzký peníz, budou k mání.
Okay. I think we maybe now the thing again, dear. I wrote it because Christianity is used as a weapon to attack transgendered people such as myself. And I wanted to see if this was truly justified by the Gospels. I was also brought up to believe that as a Christian it was my duty to try to imitate Jesus as much as I could, so I wanted to answer the question, if Jesus were transgendered, what would she say? What would she do? when I first presented this show, there were demonstrations outside the theatre from Christians who thought I wanted to make a mockery of their faith. But my intention is not to mock anyone. On the contrary, I would call this a work of devotion. How good to be meeting you outside a church. Not in a church. Because you don't often find Jesus in churches. Not right now. I've been expelled from quite a few. People say that I talk too much about sex, that I'm too dangerous. You must be very brave to meet me here. But then we never met in churches, not in the old days, not when I lived as a man all those centuries ago. We'd meet in people's rooms, and it was always a queer person who guided us there. When they told my story, they suppressed a lot, but this was one thing they could not altogether hide. You'll find it in Dear Mark and in Dear Luke. And we know the person was queer because the stories say that we had to look for a man carrying a water jar. And men never carried water. That was women's work. Men were too ashamed. It's a strange thing in this world that men should be proud to carry knives and guns, proud to carry the instruments of death, but ashamed to carry the source of life. But she was not ashamed, the beautiful person who guided us, this person-born male who was so lovely in her women's dress and with jasmine in her hair. She was one of us. And this is how it all began. A group of us meeting as friends because we wanted to change the world. I don't know why they said, so don't you go thinking we were 12 straight men in beards. Whoever tells you that is lying. I don't know why they said we were 12. We were sometimes less, sometimes more. Of course, there were men among us. There was Matthew, dear Matthew, who like us knew what it was to be an outcast. And then there was Philip, who baptized the eunuch. And then there was John, dear John, who I so dearly loved. So some of us were men, but some of us were women. Of course we were. There was Mary, Martha, Salome, fierce women, wild women. Some of us were men who used to be women, and some of us women who used to be men, and some of us men and women at the same time, and we confused people. And I loved that in us most of all, because we are the Hijra of India, and the Katai of Thailand, and the Bisu of the archipelago, and the Fafafine of Hawaii, and the Mushe of Mexico, and the Travesti of Brazil, and the Two-Spirit people of North America, and the Yandaldu of Nigeria, and the Shaman of Siberia. For verily, verily, I say unto you, that every culture in every place and time has known of us and celebrated us mostly, except for this one. And it is in the minority. And I don't understand why, in those few places on this tormented earth where we openly flaunt our dear and beautiful selves, we should so often have to work the streets as harlots and whores. But I honor us anyway, all of us, for to be us, to embody this so-called shame and this disgrace is an honor and a privilege. And the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. And remember, all of you, I never said beware the homosexual or the transgendered or the queer, because our lives are unnatural or we are depraved in our desires. I never said that. I said, beware the self-righteous and the hypocrite. Beware those who pass judgment on others and imagine themselves virtuous. Beware those who condemn others and think themselves good. They may have goodness in their lips, but their hearts are full of hatred. And that is why I said, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, whited sepulchres, that on the outside look so sleek and smooth, but on the inside are a mass of filth and corruption. That is why I said, beware of them, and never, never, never beware the homosexual or the transgendered or the queer. Because I, Jesus of Nazareth, was and am one of them. Always was, always am, always shall be, from now until the very end of time. And that's the sermon over. Sermons are difficult these days, but look at you, how well you've listened to this one. I thought now I'd tell you a story, and then maybe end with a blessing. Are you ready for the story? Are you sitting comfortably? No, it's not on the screen, you're all freaked out. There once was a father who had 2 sons. And the younger son came to know she was his daughter and didn't know what to do. And in the end she went to her father and she said, Father, forgive me, for I cannot be called your son. But the father did not forgive her. The father called his whole household together and said, this creature has brought dishonor on all of us. And he cast her out. Oh, the poor man was only doing what he thought he was supposed to do. And in his heart, he loved his child. And so he slipped her a whole load of money on the side. And the daughter, who had once been a son, went away to live in a far country. And there, not being very inclined to be prudent, spent all the money her father had given her on gorgeous dresses and shoes, until all the money was gone and she was out in the street without a euro to her name. And all her friends who adored her while she wore Prada and Versace now called her a chav and would have nothing to do with her. So what was she to do? Poor love. She had to take work where she could find it. So she took a job in a hotel kitchen, washing the pots and pans. Ugh, dirty work. And the hours were long and the pay was terrible. And she often went hungry. And in that kitchen they were very wasteful. And they threw away a whole load of food that in her father's house would have made very good food for the pigs. But they weren't allowed to touch it, they had to throw it away. And she said to herself, in my father's house, they treat the animals better than they treat the workers in this place. I know what I will do. I will go back to my father's house and I will fall at his feet and I will say, Father, I am so sorry. I cannot be called your son. And if you cannot accept me as your daughter, then at least employ me as your kitchen maid. And so that's what she did. Hitching rides and hiding in goods wagons until she came up to her father's house and her father saw her coming from a long way off. And he shouted out for joy and he ran out to meet her and she fell at his feet and she said, Father. But he would not let her finish. He lifted her up and he embraced her and he said to his household, oh, run her a scented bath and find her a gorgeous dress and crack open the best champagne and let's have a party. For she that was gone has returned. She that was dead is alive. She that was lost is found. And that's what happened. And the elder son came home from the office when the party was in full swing. And he was amazed because their house tended to be a very serious kind of place. And when he found out what was happening, he was furious. And he said to his father, Father, I've always been a good son to you. I've always done my best and you haven't so much as given me a decent suit. But when this pervert comes home, it gets everything. And the father said, oh, I know, I'm so sorry. I know you've done your best, but the fact is you're rather dull. And you've never loved me. And you have lost yourself. Whereas this new daughter of mine was lost and is found, was gone and has returned, was dead and is alive. I have found her and she has found herself. And so, of course, we must celebrate. And so they did. Because the queendom is like that. The queendom is like a grain of mustard seed, tiny, tiny, tiny. And you can try and hide it if you like. But if you do, it will grow inside you. Big, big, big. Until it feels like there is no room for anything beside it. For I tell you that what was hid must come to light. And if you have a light, and we all have a light, all of us, and sometimes it's the very thing we've been taught to be most ashamed of. And if you have a light, do you hide it in a closet? No. You take it out into the open where everyone can see it and be glad it exists to shine in the world. And because you've been so good and so lovely and these two people have just arrived, they've arrived just in time for the blessing. You might want to close your eyes for the blessing. It's a very holy moment. Bless the timid and the shy, for they shall be shameless. Bless the lonely and misunderstood, for they shall have everyone they want. Bless the poor, for they shall be rich. Bless the chairman of the board, for they will lose everything. Bless the boy in the closet in the silk wedding gown, for they will come out. Bless the prostitute, for they shall be honored. Bless the frigid and the impotent, for they shall have sex forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Bless the fathers who don't care because they've never been cared for they shall be loved. Bless the mothers who hit because they cannot still their children's tears, for they shall be comforted. Bless the bully and the criminal, for they shall lose all fear. Bless the inadequates who go into government, for they shall lose all power. Bless the gangster who boasts of the women he's raped and the people he's killed and the victims he's robbed, for he will come to know that he is they, and they are he, and shall be forever and ever. Amen. Amen. And bless us, all of us in this beautiful town of Brno, all of us who have ever been frozen in terror. Remind us we are not alone. We never were, we never are, we never shall be. For he is she, and she is he, and we are they, and they are we, and shall be forever and ever and ever.
Děkujeme velice Jo Clifford za její velmi inspirativní čtení a vy jste byli v průběhu inspirováni k dotazům, které byste nyní rádi položili. Já bych to jenom upřesnil pro ty, co přišli v průběhu. Byl jsem hozen do vody, tlumočit tady, nebyl jsem na to připravený, budu se snažit, nicméně bych potřeboval, aby někdo předával mikrofon. Takže prosím, aby dotazy byly krátké, stručné a výstižné.
Okay, Dan,
I think we should be talking into these.
Okay.
And well, you know, if they can't hear it, then I'm sure somebody's going to tell us.
Okay, hello. Thanks for the reading, and I wanted to ask you if you consider yourself a feminist.
Mm-hmm.
And what you think about the state of feminism in the world today?
Okay, do I...
I have to translate myself.
Yeah.
Já jsem se ptala, jestli se autorka považuje za feministku a co si myslí o stavu feminismu ve světě dnes. Okay.
Okay. Yes is the answer. Yes, I do think of myself as a feminist.
I'll manage.
You'll manage, you're
I'll
clever
tell you when to
man. Because misogyny, because hatred of women is one of the main causes why I suffered so much as a boy. I suffered so much to find that there was this woman inside me. And because yes, and my late wife, my late partner was a very fierce feminist. And the cause of women, the cause of ending injustice against women of all kinds is the cause of humanity. Just as the cause of trying to gain justice and equality for transgendered people is everybody's fight for justice. I'm not sure I've answered your question.
Takže ano, jsem feministkou. Už jako malý chlapec jsem pociťovala tu nenávist k ženám. Ta žena uvnitř mne vlastně volala po nějaké nápravě. I moje nyní již zesnulá manželka byla feministkou a myslím, že celá otázka násilí na ženách nebo nějaký vlastně nepráví, kterým ženy trpí, tak je to otázka, kterou je potřeba se zabývat na nějaké úrovni celého lidstva. Je to boj, který podstupujeme všichni, ve kterém jsme všichni jaksi pohromadě. Ale nevím, jestli jsem odpověděla na vaši otázku, takže případně...
Oh, he's very good, isn't he?
How would you know? All right.
Good evening.
What?
Good evening.
Good evening.
First question, Scottish referendum, how we will vote.
Uh-huh.
Second is about you and not recognized Moravian nation here. And third, who are last people in Scotland as we Moravians here.
Okay.
Referendum
Okay,
Morava, kdo je poslední ve Skotsku jako
And the other one
Moraváci
was
tady.
this guy's obsessed, with Moravian matters and so forth. So he's asking about whether you have an opinion of whether Moravia is recognized or not recognized as a nation.
Okay.
A třetí otázka byla? Kdo je poslední ve Skotsku? Nevím, v jakém kontextu, ale třeba to vyplyne. Who's the last man standing in Scotland? I don't know what, but
Okay.
we'll figure
Well, I think the answer is that yes, I am voting yes in the referendum.
v referendu samozřejmě budu hlasovat ano.
I think it is very important for Scotland to take charge of her own affairs.
Je velmi důležité, aby se Skotsko znovu vzalo věci do svých vlastních rukou.
This will have a profoundly positive impact on the whole of Great Britain, because the whole of Great Britain is currently it's a failing state. It's locked in a dysfunctional form of government. It desperately needs reform, which it is incapable of producing on its own. And hopefully, if Scotland becomes independent, that will provide enough of a shock to the system to enable the change to come that needs to come if Britain is to continue to be a half-decent country, because at the moment it is on the path to ruin and to become a disgraceful, uncivilized, unjust place. Okay, dear?
All right. Tak, myslím si, že skotská nezávislost by měla pozitivní vliv na Velkou Británii, protože je to momentálně stát, který nefunguje, je dysfunkční a potřebuje nějakým způsobem reformovat. Bohužel je neschopný toto zvládnout sám o sobě a je dost možné, nebo doufám v to, že skotské referendum, skotská nezávislost by mohla působit jako jakýsi šok, který by nastartoval změny i ve Velké Británii. Jsou to změny, které je opravdu nutné provést, protože Británie je momentálně opravdu jenom taková jako nic moc země na cestě do pekel a ty změny opravdu potřebuje. Necivilizovaná ještě taky tady padlo. Mhm.
Okay.
A můžete to nějak vysvětlit, co přesně tím myslíte? Nebo o Moravii, jo, takhle, ano, jo, moravská část.
Tell him I wish Moravia well in her struggle for self-determination.
Aha, tak přeji Moravě vše dobré ve svém vlastním boji o nezávislost. To je takový pozitivní message.
Yeah, thank you.
Chci vám poděkovat za váš okouzlující, úžasný přednes, za nádherné myšlenky a taky potom potkal jste někdy anděla?
Have I got an angel?
Have you met one?
Have I met one? Yeah. I've met many angels. Yeah, I have just met another one, and she's wearing a green kind of thing and a purple hat, and she has the most beautiful smile.
Ano, andělů jsem potkala spousty, právě teď jsem potkala dalšího, má na sobě cosi fialového, zeleného a krásně se usmívá.
Dobrý večer. Váš projev je velmi radikální. Vy jste se spolupodílela na zakládání divadla Travers. A co to pro vás znamená? Jaké to divadlo má místo ve Skotsku? A je to politické divadlo?
I think that to make theatre is itself a political act, because because we live in a society that is capital intensive and hates people. Theatre is labour intensive, and it can only happen through the love of people, through the love of collective work. If we don't work together in theatre, then theatre doesn't happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got more, so I'll let you go with that.
Už samotný akt vlastně, nebo už samotné divadlo jako takové je, dělat divadlo je politickým aktem, politickým činem. Žijeme ve společnosti, která je náročná na kapitál a tím pádem nenávidí lidi, nebo nesnáší lidi. Zatímco divadlo je záležitost, která je náročná právě na ten lidský výkon a je to práce nějakého celku, nějakého společenského celku.
Also because our society exists to sell things. Theatre is not a thing. Theatre is a happening, a live happening. And so what has happened tonight has never happened before and will never happen again.
V naší společnosti je obrovský důraz na vlastně prodávání věcí. Naše společnost se v takovém rámci teďka pohybuje, zatímco divadlo není věc. Divadlo je něco živého. To, co tady proběhlo dnes, například konec konců je něco, co se předtím nikdy nestalo a už se to nikdy nebude opakovat. Je to jedinečná věc.
And so it can never be bought or sold. The essence of theatre can never be bought or sold. And the crucial thing about theatre is connection between people. The connection between you and the connection between me, the connection between all of us that we have experienced tonight and we are experiencing now. And that simple experience of being together as human beings is itself an act of resistance to a inhuman, corrupt social order.
Divadlo je něco, co se nedá koupit, nedá se to prodat. Je to něco, co spojuje lidi, nás tady všechny, kteří jsme tady dnes třeba něco zažili. Je to jednoduchý zážitek, jednoduchá zkušenost a důležité na ní je, že vlastně je to zkušenost společná. Protože my, co by lidé, jsme jakýmsi protipólem té skorumpované a nelidské, nebo skorumpovaného a nelidského sociálního řádu, se kterým se setkáváme.
Jak jste objevila ženu v sobě?
How did you find the woman in yourself?
She found me.
Ona našla mě.
I had no choice. We do not choose our gender, and that's true of transgendered people also. I struggled very hard. I tried for many years to be a man, and I was very unhappy. I was lucky. I was saved by the people who loved me, by my angels, my daughters, my partner. They saved me. They saved me from death, I think. But she found me. That's all. I found myself in this situation where I could not be a man. And eventually I got to a point where I could no longer continue living as a man. And so I had to start living differently, as you see. And I had to resist my shame and my fear as strongly as I could.
Neměla jsem na výběr. Gender je něco, co si nevybíráme, to je vlastně něco, co by se dalo říct všeobecně o transgender lidech. Mnoho let jsem se snažila žít jako muž, ale byla jsem velmi nešťastná, ale naštěstí jsem byla zachráněna, a to svými anděli, svými blízkými, svými dcerami a partnerem. V podstatě si myslím, že mě tehdy zachránili od smrti. Našla jsem sama sebe, prostě už jsem nemohla dál být mužem v nějakém bodě, už jsem potřebovala začít žít jinak, i když to znamenalo postavit se čelem svému studu a svým obavám.
Já teď sklouznu úplně do jiného tématu. Chtěla jsem se zeptat, jestli vám četli pohádky. Když jste byl malý. A jaké bylo vaše nejoblíbenější jídlo? Třeba od babičky nebo od maminky?
From your grandma or your mom.
Okay. I don't remember anyone reading me fairy tales. But she is right to say that fairy tales and legends have been incredibly important for me all my life, and they continue to be important.
Nepamatuju si, že by mi někdo četl pohádky, ale je pravda, že právě pohádky a legendy jsou něco, co jsou to pro mě důležité věci a byly pro mě důležité celý život.
Because they are the repository of the wisdom of the world.
Je to jakási pokladnice moudrosti světa.
Now, my favorite food. When I was a boy, I was brought up in a very conventional English household. And every Sunday, my father insisted we eat roast beef with potatoes and cabbage. I exaggerate a little, but it was very traditional English food, and it was disgusting. And as soon as I could, I left home and became a vegetarian.
Okay. Jako malý chlapec jsem žila ve velmi konvenční britské domácnosti, kde každou neděli bylo v podstatě nikoliv vepřok nedlozelo, ale s hovězím teda, asi bychom si to tady předělali, roast beef. Bylo to tradiční, anglické a hnusné, takže jakmile jsem měla možnost, tak jsem utekla z domova a stala se vegetariánkou, nebo v té době asi ještě vegetariánem.
I'm sorry, you said you was a vegetarian and now you are still vegetarian? And tell the truth, please.
No, I'm not anymore. No.
Řekl jsem, že autorka byla vegetariánem a jestli je stále vegetariánem.
Strange question. Some years ago, I had very bad heart trouble. I had to have heart surgery. I have died. They stopped my heart for 6 hours while they operated on it. And
6 hours?
6 hours, yeah, I was dead. And immediately after that time, I found I had a great craving for meat. I think I needed the protein to recover. And so I started to eat meat again. And so I am no longer a vegetarian, I'm ashamed to say.
And now, in the moment, what do you think about roast beef again?
Do you know, I still haven't eaten it. Yeah, I don't like it very much. Oh, except once. I was in a very expensive restaurant and they served beef and I have never tasted anything so divine in my life. But it has to be cooked well. Why are we talking about roast beef?
But the problem was the cookery of your father, probably, because he prepared the roast beef very bad.
Maybe, yeah.
Tak otázka teda byla, jestli jsem stále vegetariánkou, tak před léty jsem měla nějaké potíže se srdcem a musela jsem se podrobit operaci, kde jsem v podstatě zemřela, protože na 6 hodin to vyžadovalo ta operace, aby mi zastavili srdce, takže 6 hodin jsem byla mrtvá. Nicméně potom, až jsem se vzbudila, tak jsem pocítila velkou touhu potom nějaké maso přece jenom sníst. Asi to byla potřeba toho proteinu, čili vás již zklamu, dnes už nejsem vegetariánkou, i když, ano, a jednou jsem ten roast beef teda okusila ve velmi drahé restauraci. Bylo to výborné, ale je potřeba, aby to udělal někdo pořádně. Ale ten roast beef to byl opravdu jenom jednou, jinak jiné věci asi.
Hello, I am interested in your political activity as a feminist. If you are a member of any political organization, if you fight for quotas for women, for example, and about your political clashes with parties, and you mentioned Christians and other groups.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I will translate. Jestli autorka je aktivní vlastně členkou nějaké politické organizace jako feministka, co si myslí o kvotách pro zastoupení žen v politice a co ještě? Jo, a o těch vlastně konfliktech s nějakými politickými organizacemi a s křesťanskými skupinami a dalšími skupinami. Thank you.
Okay. I have never belonged to a political party. Never. I can't. I don't know. There's a way of thinking that I can't get on with. When I first presented my play Jesus, Queen of Heaven, I remember turning up for the first night. This is a Tron Theatre in Glasgow. And the street outside the theatre was full. There were hundreds of people demonstrating against my play.
Nikdy jsem nebyla členkou žádné politické strany. Není to pro mě způsob myšlení, který by mě byl blízký, ale můžu vám říct, že když jsem byla vlastně na premiéře své hry, za které jsem dneska četla, tak před divadlem v Glasgow byly ulice plné demonstrantů.
And there were Roman Catholics and there were evangelical Baptists. Can you translate? Is that right?
Byli tam mimo jiné římští katolíci a baptisté, čili evangeličtí baptisté.
Who usually detest each other.
Kteří se většinou vzájemně nesnáší.
But they all came together because they hated me.
Ale všichni se semkli, protože mě nenáviděli ještě víc.
And so I did my bit for Christian unity.
Ano, to byl můj pokus o sjednocení křesťanství.
And a friend of mine spoke to the demonstrators, someone who was coming in to see me, and she said, why do you hate this play so much? You've never read it. You don't know the first thing about it. And they said, you don't have to go near a sewer to know that it stinks.
Nějaký můj kamarád nebo kamarádka tak se zeptala demonstrantů, proč nesnáší tu hru. A oni odpověděli, když to nenapsali, když o tom vlastně nic neví. A oni odpověděli, že nemusíte se ke kanálu přibližovat, abyste věděli, že páchne.
So you've just spent an evening with an open sewer. I hope you're all right.
Takže potom, co jste strávili večer s páchnoucím kanálem, tak doufám, že jste všichni pořádku.
And the next day, the Catholic Archbishop of Glasgow said it was hard to imagine a greater affront to the Christian faith than my play.
Druhý den se katolický arcibiskup z Glasgow ozval, že si těžko dovede představit horší urážku náboženství nebo své víry než moji hru.
One of the best reviews I've ever had.
Jedna z nejlepších recenzí, která se mi kdy dostala, samozřejmě.
Just additional, what do you think about quotas for women? Quotas like 50% of women in government or something like that? Proportion, yeah.
He's talking about quotas in important jobs, isn't he?
Yeah, in politics.
Yeah.
Jaký je vlastně váš názor na politické kvóty, nějaké
zastoupení žen
a tak dále?
I think it's important, and there certainly should be more trans women in public place, but this isn't the kind of thing that it's worth discussing.
Myslím, že to je důležité, určitě by tam mělo být víc transgender žen, ale asi to není něco, co by tady bylo nutné se o tom bavit, nebo že bychom k něčemu došli.
Tak já chci jenom podotknout, že ten, kdo soudí, tak bude odsouzen sám, nebo soudí sám sebe. A nejlepší na tom je vlastně, že ti, co mají plná ústa lásky, tak vlastně tu lásku ničí. Takže to je taková dualita.
Those who speak of love destroy love. Musím to ještě zopakovat, prosím. Kdo mají ústa lásky? Nebo?
No, tak něco jiného je opravdu žít tu lásku a něco jiného jenom o ní mluvit.
Okay. There's two different things, speaking about love and living love.
Yeah, exactly. No, she's absolutely right. She's clearly a wise woman.
Máte úplnou pravdu, jste jistě velmi moudrá žena.
Děkuji. Chtěla jsem se zeptat, jestli máte z něčeho strach a jaký máte problém třeba s islámem, nebo s těma, kteří říkají, že vlastně Evropu okupují svými dělohami.
Of the population boom that Islam is probably going to, the Islamic wave is going to develop Europe sometime soon.
No. I've studied Islam. It's a very beautiful religion.
Studoval jsem islám, je to krásné náboženství a nemyslím si, že toto by byl problém, který nastane.
The powers in my country, the government in my country is promoting fear of Islam in order to try and bolster up its own authority. This is a bogus exercise.
Vláda v mé zemi se snaží nějakým způsobem podněcovat strach z islámu pouze asi z důvodu toho, aby si nějakým způsobem zvýšila svou vlastní autoritu, ale je to vlastně falešná hra.
Komu podle vás vyhovuje tohle neustále popouzení k strachu?
Okay, who's to gain by this fear-mongering?
Oh, I'm so tired. All of a sudden, this makes me very tired and very depressed. But weak governments always try to divert attention from their own problems through cultivating hatred of the other.
Slabé vlády nebo slabé režimy se vždycky snaží nějakým způsobem navážet do té druhé strany, aby si vylepšili svoji pozici.
Ještě jsem se ptala, jestli on sám nebo ona sama má z něčeho strach. Z čeho?
Is there anything you fear personally?
Oh, yeah. I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of being attacked in the street. I'm afraid of... Yeah, I'm afraid of death. We're all afraid of death, aren't we? And... but at the same time, I live a life full of hope and joy, because life is very beautiful.
Samozřejmě, ano. Bojím se smrti, bojím se toho, že mě někdo přepadne na ulici, ale hlavně se bojím smrti, protože toho se asi bojíme všichni. Zároveň ale žiju život radostný, plný naděje a štěstí. Why are you afraid of death?
It's part of what it is to be human, and we have to learn to overcome that fear and learn to embrace death. But that's a struggle. That's the task in the later years of our lives.
Je to něco lidského, musíme se s tím všichni naučit nějakým způsobem bojovat nebo vyrovnat, ale to je úkol pro pozdější části našich životů. Já myslím, že tak maximálně 3 otázky. Ideálně, pokud se bude chtít zeptat někdo, kdo se ještě neptal, tak prosím, protože autorka samozřejmě neuteče, bude k dispozici jistě u piva na zahrádce ještě po zbytek večera, takže takové ty otázky o smyslu života, smrti, kvótách a podobně určitě ještě můžeme rozebrat detailně, takže prosím.
To byl moc hezký motiv o návratu marnotratné dcery. Někdo dál.
It was a very nice parable of the lost child, of the lost daughter.
A taková povrchní otázka, jak se vám líbí, jak se oblékají české a moravské ženy?
And this is going to be a very superficial question after that. How do you like the way Czech and Moravian women dress?
Oh. Very, very beautifully, especially you.
Okay, velmi krásně, zejména vy. Teď nevím, jestli to bylo na mě, nebo ne, dobře.
To mě už dlouho nikdo neřekl.
Nobody settled for that for a long time, something like that. Tak ještě tam je vzadu někdo, kdo se neptal? Jo.
Já bych si chtěla zeptat, protože když jste mluvila o tom, že změna genderu, že projevení vašeho genderu, tom, jak jste se vlastně stala ženou otevřeně, pro vás bylo zkušenost, kterou provázel stud a další takový jakoby negativní pocity, se kterými jste se musela vyrovnat. Jak vás napadlo vlastně o tom psát, o té zkušenosti a kdy jste se k tomu odhodlala?
Jestli kdy tom začala psát a... Since it's a very intimate experience, how did you come to incorporate it in your writing? How do you make the decision if there was one? And how did it happen?
Yeah, it's very difficult to know how to write about it. But as far as I know, there are no other transgendered women playwrights. Yeah, I'm the only one. There is no tradition. Yeah, it's more difficult in a way than being a gay playwright or a woman playwright because there are no models, there are no precedents. It's as if I'm having to invent a whole new art form. Yeah. And so it's very difficult. And I found that there were when I started to try and write about these things, the Traverse was no longer interested in what I had to say. I have encountered a lot of opposition. It's very hard, but it is very necessary, yeah? Because being transgender, it is true, it has opened me up to a lot of suffering. I have suffered a lot. But it is also a very wonderful experience. It's very enriching. And in a way, I would not want my life to be different. Yeah? And so my task is to try to find proper expression for this. And what you have witnessed tonight is a first attempt. Yeah? No one else has ever tried to do this before. And so it's a very imperfect attempt, but it is the best that I can do for now.
Je to velmi složitá otázka, protože vlastně jsem jediná, kdo se o to pokouší. Vlastně neexistují žádní další transgender nebo žádné další transgender dramatičky, neexistuje žádná tradice. Je to složitější, než kdybych než kdybych byla třeba gay dramatik nebo dramatička. Neexistuje proto žádný model. Je to velmi rozdílné. Čili samozřejmě v mnoha ohledech tam chybí podpora. V momentě, kdy jsem vlastně prošla tou změnou, tak divadlo Travers už nebylo v mých hrách najednou, už o ně nejevilo zájem. Čili nějaká opozice tam samozřejmě je, ale na druhou stranu je nutné psát, je to důležité, je to potřebné. Obnáší to, tak jak jste zmínila, určitě jistá odříkání nebo jisté negativní stránky, ale na druhou stranu je to také opravdu skvělé a obohacující a nechtěla bych žít jiný život. Tak já myslím, že to byla taková hezká tečka za tím naším večerem. Stick around if people want to talk to you or something. So.
Oh, thank you.
Just grab my beer.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you. Hello.
I've been told that you brought copies of your work to sell. Will you be doing that now?
Yeah.
I'd like to buy it.
Let's buy one. It's £3, so I think that's 100.
Yeah, I say 100 crowns.
100 crowns. Yeah.
All right.
There you are. You're the first person who has bought one. It's a historic moment. Thank you very much. Yeah, of course. A pen. Yeah. Let's get one. And so, what is your name? Gabrielle.
Já jsem překladatel, správně si to řekl, nikoli tlumočník. Já nestíhám... Já nestíhám tu rychlost.
You're welcome, thank you.
Kdysi jsem to dělal, ale nejsem na to zvyklý, no.
You want to buy one too? Yeah, of course. There we are. Yes, of course. And what is your name? Daniel.
No, taky už, jo.
You will? Yeah. Oh, of course, yeah. Wow. Okay. Oh, yeah? You're welcome. Lovely to meet you. Yeah, of course, dear. There you are. Thank you. You're welcome. Hello, listen, dear. Good luck. Good luck. Yeah. I'll do it here, okay? There we are. A bigger one. Yeah, okay.
So forge your signature, presumably.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but anyway, there we are.
Můžeme to když tak už písnout dolů. Už bude... Jo.
Email is...
What's your email? Yeah, possible.
Yeah,
but we have to move it downstairs because the second reading will be starting in, I don't know, 5 minutes.
Oh, this seems to have gone on forever. What time is it, dear?
I think it's, 8:30. It must be 8:30 because, 8:30.
It's special with you, but I think it was very good.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Wow.
All right.
Okay.
That was great.
Hey, do people normally ask so many questions?
Oh yeah. Half the time really.
Wow.
We stop before, you know.
I was
everybody's
amazed.
had a chance.
Yeah. But it's really touching that this is your pen, by the way.
Oh yeah. Not actually mine, but someone's.
Well, that's my bag, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah, but there is so
Festival bag.
much interest in Scottish writing here.
Well,
I just find that
you're the 20th person to, you know, instill that, I guess.
I know,
this month.
but isn't that incredible?
It is, yeah. And I think it's really great that you guys are all, you know, up to this traveling circus format and everything. And
we feel very honoured, I think, that there is so much interest. Yeah, I've got everything. Okay, very good.